Welcome to the third episode of the Workhorse Sports Podcast. Like I said, that second one is a little bit shorter, just college football picks. A little less than 50%, I think, yesterday. TCU was a bummer. Jumping off sides by West Virginia, getting the free play, throwing the long ball, touchdown. They covered. Rough. But we got some NFL games today that we'll start off with. We'll go through 1 p.m., 4:30, Sunday night, Monday night. Not all the 1 o'clock games. There's a couple that are just no one's going to care about. So we'll start with the Lions-Dolphins game. What do you got for this one?
The line I saw was minus 4.5 for the Dolphins. Fortunately for you, Drew, I think the Lions' struggles, they continue. Tua is going to be too much for them. I really like the spread on this one. I'm going Dolphins.
Yeah, I think the Lions cover this one. I don't know if they win. I don't think they'll win. But I also don't think the Dolphins are as good as everyone gives them credit for. Granted, you don't have to be that much better than someone gives you credit for to beat the Lions. But the way the Steelers played them last week, the Dolphins start off strong, but got all their points in the first quarter and then did nothing the rest of the game. The Steelers aren't that great of a team. I'd say they're probably comparable to the Lions. But the Lions' offense is good. The Steelers' defense is good. I don't know if the Lions can hold the Dolphins, but it depends on what kind of Jared Goff shows up. If Jared Goff shows up and slings it around, then I think the Lions can hang and cover. If he doesn't, then it's not going to matter. They'll lose by 10 to 14. So I got them covering the spread. I'll take them to win outright because this just seems like one of those games that the Lions will win and then they'll lose to the Texans or lose to the Bears at home or something where they should be winning those games. But this is one of those games where it's not a team that's going to dominate them, so I think they could pull it off, and this is one of those spots where I think they might be able to. But I'll take them to cover. Steelers-Eagles. This one is interesting. Steelers one of those teams that play good teams to their level and play bad teams to their level. I think the Eagles win. I don't really, as long as the spread is north or south of 7, I think they cover.
10.5.
10.5?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. For the NFL, 10.5, that's insane. I'm going to go with the Eagles still. I think they're going to end up pulling it out. As much as I hate to say it, I think they're that much better than the Steelers.
Yeah, I think Steelers have a quarterback problem right now. Kenny Pickett, I mean, he might be good in the future, but they're not doing too great. They're not the same Steelers that we've seen in the past. And the Eagles, they're for real this year. I really think the Eagles can cover 10.5, as crazy as that sounds. But I also like that.
Yeah, I agree. This one is interesting. Excuse me. Vikings-Cardinals. Vikings are at home. Cardinals coming off the bye. This is a game. Vikings are giving 3.5. This is a game that Kirk Cousins is going to lose. That's just the typical game where you're like, oh, the Vikings probably should win this game. They're better than the Cardinals. They're at home. But that bye week situation, the Cardinals are not completely inept. And the Vikings are always good for one of these games or more than one of these games a year. I think 6-1 start for Minnesota, that would be great for them. But they're still fine at 5-2. I don't see a lot on this game from others because I think it's one of those where maybe people are thinking along the same lines as myself, or they maybe giving Cardinals a little bit of credit. I don't know. Call of Duty's coming out, so I don't know if Kyler Murray is going to be fully invested.
That was my point, yeah. That's the one thing you didn't take into consideration. Came out last night, or 2 nights ago, Friday night. So Vikings cover big here. Kyler Murray, he's been playing Call of Duty all weekend. He hasn't been reviewing the tape, even though it's in his contract. So big Viking fan today.
That's one of the most absurd contract requests I've ever heard. Like, you have to watch a certain amount of film like begging an NFL quarterback to sit down and do their job. Like, that's insane.
Well, when you have a Modern Warfare 2 or Call of Duty problem, I mean, I guess it's necessary. But yeah, Vikings cover here big.
Pats and Jets. So what I'm seeing here, the Pats have not stopped owning the Jets just because the Jets won a couple of football games. I like Billy Zappi. If Mac Jones plays, he's still Mac Jones. He's still solid quarterback. I think we have a tendency to jump on and off the quarterback train a little too quickly when people have off nights. The Jets are not a bad team. I like Robert Saleh and what he's doing over there. The way New England has played the past 2 weeks, they're showing that they're finding ways to at least be competitive, if not win football games. The spread for this one is New England giving up 2.5. I will take that since it's south of 3.
Yeah. Jets have lost 12 straight to the Pats. However, I think the Jets are for real this year. Garrett Wilson's one of the best wide receivers in the league, and he's a rookie. He's only going to get better. I like the Jets on this one. Patriots are not a bad team. Mac Jones is not a terrible quarterback. But the Jets, they're due. It's been 12 games that they've lost in a row, so I think they pull it out today.
It's pretty crazy if you look at that division that the Dolphins might be the worst team, where in a couple other ones they might be the best team.
Right. Yeah.
That's just the Bills obviously are in a whole separate league. Rams 49ers, similar to the Pats. The Pats own the Jets. The 49ers own the Rams somehow. I don't know what it is. This spread is actually even, so it's just a pick 'em. I'm taking the Niners just based on the fact that, like I said, they just find a way to win against the Rams. And since they're not giving up any points, I'll take them in a pick 'em straight up against the Rams. I think the Rams are due for a win. I just don't think it's today.
Yeah. I also have the Niners second week for Christian McCaffrey. He did all right last week, but I mean, he's got a whole nother week under his belt to learn the playbook and all that. Like you said, they historically they beat up on the Rams. So yeah, with the pick 'em, I'll take the 49ers also.
Yeah. Sunday night, what preseason probably looked like an elite matchup. Packers and the Bills. Buffalo is giving up 10.5 at home. What do you got for that one?
10.5 is a lot of points, like we said earlier. The Bills are going to win this game. There's no way they don't win this game, but I'm taking the Packers for 10.5. That's a lot of points. Aaron Rodgers, he's due. I don't know what's been going on with him. Worst start he's had in recent history I can think of. But yeah, that's too many points. 10.5. Josh Allen, he's going to kill the Packers, but they'll cover.
Yeah, and I would not bet it. I would take Bills by 1 billion, but 10.5 is too much points in the NFL. Plus, you're playing Aaron Rodgers. I know he's down, but he's still Aaron Rodgers. There's ability to at least be relevant in a primetime game like this is still there. I'll take the Packers getting 10.5, but I expect the Bills to win, and I would expect them to win 7 or 8 points, if not by more. But in terms of what I would put my money on, I'd put them on the Packers. Monday night, I'll let you lead this one off because you're the community Bengals guy. What do you think between Bengals and Browns?
Yeah, so we got the Battle for Ohio up in Cleveland. I got 3 points. I got the Bengals giving up 3 points on this one. However, in prime time in Cleveland at night, Monday night, I think they're going to pull it off. We got not Chase Young, Jamar Chase. He's out for a while. I don't know if you saw that. He has like a hip injury. Mm-hmm. And then prime time in Cleveland, they've historically done well, and it's Battle of Ohio. The one game this year that they pull off without messing up in the last 5 minutes, it's going to be tomorrow night.
Yeah. giving up 3, the Bengals are giving up 3. I would take the Browns as well. They're talented. They're one of those, like, if you watch a lot of college football, you see these teams all the time, like the ones that just have so much talent, but they just are like undisciplined. And you don't expect that out of an NFL team. But that's kind of what the Browns are. But if they can put it together, there really isn't a team that Browns team couldn't beat if they just focus. And I think a lot of it's coaching too. But if they just get a couple of breaks go their way, I think they could pull this one off outright. But even if they win or lose by a point or two, I'd still take them.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean the Bengals aren't any good. Like you said, Jamar Chase has his issues going on, but in that division, Steelers aren't doing great. I think the Ravens are good, but I think it's pretty in terms of parity, talent wise, is pretty much even. I think the Bengals are better coached, but tonight or Monday night in Cleveland, prime time, like you said, I think they can get it done.
You got Nick Chubb too. I mean,
Yeah.
if it's in Cincinnati, I think I go the other way. But being in Cleveland, I really like the Browns tomorrow.
Yeah, and that game would pull them out of the despair that they're in. 2-5. If you can get to 3-5, let me see what the look ahead is for the Browns real quick. They got the Dolphins after. Yeah, they need this game because they have the Dolphins next, who still solid football team. Then they have the Bills, down Bucks team that could turn it around at any point. The
Yeah.
Texans. Then they play the Bengals again, and then it's pretty much the division the rest of the way. So this is a big one for the Browns if they want to have any kind of hope for the rest of the season.
For sure.
All right, so that's the NFL slate. We'll get this posted 10:30, 11 o'clock, so that way if you wanted to watch it before the games get started and see where we end up in terms of our picks, then you can definitely be able to do that. Other things we have on the slate for today, like I said in the episode 2, we have a lot of veterans who have either followed us on Twitter, like the Facebook page, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and a lot of them aren't big sports guys, but they are just doing it to kind of show support for us, and we appreciate that. So we're going to do a little content for those guys as well, just stories from our times in the military. There's multiple ones that we could talk about, but the one that we're going with for today is just a crazy time for us. If you didn't know, myself and Jonathan were in the same unit when we were active. Shoot, how long ago was that now?
I got out in 2017. So it's been
would have been
5 years.
2015, I think.
Yeah, it's 2015. Yep.
Yeah, so about
7 years.
Yeah, that's crazy. But yeah, 7 years ago, we were in the same unit. A lot of the people that subscribed and liked were in that same unit. But if you know anything about the veteran community, are a veteran yourself, then stories like this will resonate with you because everyone's had things like this. Even if you have no background with military or veterans or anything like that, you've had something like this happen in your life where things just go astray, or you're in a situation where it's almost unfathomable at the time, and then you look back on it and laugh about how things went. So if you want to get it started, Jonathan, and then I'll chime in as we get going. This is a story about our 4-week trip at Fort Knox with a group of Cav Scouts for gunnery. So yeah, go ahead and get started and I'll chime in.
Yeah, so a little background of the story. Our leadership being we were an infantry brigade, and our leadership thought that it was a good idea for us to go to gunnery with Cav Scouts because we were in a heavy weapons company. So we're going to Fort Knox for 4 weeks. I think it was actually longer than that. I think it was like 35 days or something.
Actually, it probably was 29, so that way they wouldn't have to pay us
Yeah.
the family SEP or BAH or whatever.
true. Yeah, but they issue us one-man tents, and I have never slept in a one-man tent in the Army before this or after this ever. So going into it, we knew it was going to be a shit show. Who gets one-man tents and get to sleep outside for 4 weeks, essentially? We show up and they didn't really have anywhere for us to stay, so we go to a motor pool. Well, I think that was like the second week, but every living situation just went downhill the entire time. We started out and we weren't doing gunnery the first week, so they were like, we need to start training and we need to go do all these training exercises. Let's go do land nav and assault a village, and here's the coordinates, and you have 30 minutes to plan and step out and be on target in an hour. Stuff like that. Like, it was impossible standards in the middle of Fort Knox while you're sleeping outside. And Cab Scouts are hanging hammocks and have showers and everything else less than a mile away from you.
And it should be noted that we had the ability to utilize that stuff and we chose not to. So there's like, we're driving past the shower trailer. People are coming out in like towels or steaming stuff, and we're going back to our one-man tents to do laundry in emery boxes with rocks. And we just put the laundry in there, put some water in there, put a little liner in there, and just shake it. And then hopefully all the stuff comes off. It doesn't work because then whatever detergent you use just sits in the clothes. So then you get itchy more than you already were. But I'll let you go. Yeah, keep going.
Yeah. So after the first week of our training before gunnery, we moved to different locations, like probably 3 or 4 different times. We got kicked out of the motor pool that we were in
about that.
at one point. And then this other point, we're in the middle of a gravel parking lot, essentially. I don't even think it was a motor pool. And for some reason, there is a pile of gravel. I mean, probably, we say like 15, 20 feet tall of gravel rocks.
It was about a 2-story building of, well, maybe a little short, about a 2-story building of just gravel, just like the way you would picture like if you were to take all the gravel that you put in like an unpaved road and instead of laying it out, just made it go up. That's what it was.
Yeah. And I think the thought process behind it, other than ACUs don't blend in with anything other than gravel, but I think the primary reason why this decision was made was because our leadership was afraid that we were going to get ran over by Humvees when we slept behind them. So we had to go and find the highest elevated area in the parking lot. And we decided it was a good idea to sleep on top of this gravel rock with your entire platoon, and dig out shallow graves to sleep in with your one-man tents. So, and by this time we were what, 2.5, 3 weeks in, and people were losing their minds.
Yeah, it was definitely more than a week, because the last week we were there, it was barracks, but you said the situation decreased over time. Those barracks were not an increase, but they also weren't necessarily a decrease, because I think they had electricity, but they didn't have running water, or the running water that we had we couldn't use. So we still had to go to those trailers if we needed to shower, because we did get the opportunity to shower about 2.5 to 3 weeks in. But by that time, that ship had sailed. It was already too late for us.
Yeah. I think we were just happy to be in barracks and not sleep in our one-man tents. And don't get us wrong, like, we've slept outside. We did training missions. We've gone to JRTC. I mean, I've been to Afghanistan. You've been on your own deployment. We know what suck is, and there's reasons to suck sometimes. And this was not one of those times that we needed to suck.
Yeah, and at the time, we would find individuals to blame. The situation itself was one of those where we did it to ourselves, essentially, and then the complaining it's something you do to make yourself feel better, but it doesn't help because then it just compounds. And I get it. There's people I still know today that like if a situation's bad, they will complain about it, and then it makes everyone else around them a little more negative, and but it makes everyone kind of feel better in the end too, because it's like, okay, now we have a common thing that we can all like laugh about and complain about. One of the best stories that came out of this though was there was an individual who did not bring their one man tent to this field event, one reason or another. We did a packing list, we did a layout, everything was there. We get to laying out our tents, and leadership says, everyone lay out your tents. We want to make sure everything's good with it. They go down the line and they're looking and they're like, okay, your tent's set up right. Yours is a little messed up. Here, you help him with that tent. Here's your tent. Here's your tent. And this guy had set up, he took his poncho and a couple of sticks and tried to make it look like a tent. And that made it worse than if he had just said, I don't have a tent. Because then it looks like he's thinking that this situation is somehow acceptable, that you have two twigs and a poncho holding it up together. And I think he was the last one in line. It was almost Looney Tune like. Same individual forgot their tennis shoes, so we all had to do PT and boots the whole time. So we'd be running sprints through like our gravel pit parking lot in boots. Guys were just upset about that. It was something to be seen, that's for sure.
And
Yeah,
if you
like,
know anything about Fort Knox too, you know the terrain is hills and
mhm.
steep hills. And running in boots is fine, but for running every day in boots and doing PT and running up these hills or running through gravel or whatever, PT tennis shoes would have been ideal.
Yeah, I mean, if I don't know if you remember this, they had to tell us specifically not to ride the brakes in the Humvees when we were going downhill because Humvees were catching on fire because the brakes would overheat from the friction. And I don't think it was our unit, but there was a couple units that had like Humvees just catch on fire at the bottom of hills because they're trying to go 25, 35 down this hill, and this ton weighing a ton like piece of metal is not going to go that slow down this hill because some of the grades there were pretty steep.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's another big thing for me was the not showering when we had the capacity to, because it was just so demoralizing to see these Cav Scouts walking around clean, like well shaven. Well, we had to shave, that's for sure, but it was just dry shaving in the field.
Or in the PX bathroom.
Yeah, if you were allowed to go to the PX because your uniform had to be pristine.
You had to stay in the back of the LMTV or whatever
Yeah,
we had
yeah,
and wait for everyone else to come back if your uniform was messed up.
yeah. It's like if you ever go to like a 7-Eleven or a gas station, you see the dogs in the back of the trucks that are like sad because their owner went into the store. That was kind of what you would see at the back of an LMTV. It's like just a private just sitting there like slumped over, sad because his uniform wasn't good enough to go in the PX. But the shower situation was made worse. At the time, our medic was trying to campaign for us to be able to have showers, just from the health aspect of the whole thing. Um, if you've ever had what we call prickly heat, I think there's probably a more scientific term for it than that. That seems very archaic. Um, but it's basically like salt deposits in your skin that you don't have enough hydration in you to sweat out. So they just kind of sit there and have these little bumps and it irritates you. And I remember the first time we did get to shower, guys were in there with just credit cards, just scraping each other's backs, trying to get rid of that. It was,
Yeah.
I've never had something as frustrating as that in terms of just like medically, the itching and then the burning from that was just terrible. Um, you
Another
want
thing from this,
to,
I don't know if I'm sure you remember. So we're on the range actually doing gunnery, and we're doing it with another platoon. Like the other platoon is side by side, and we're going and doing targets together. And for some reason, the other platoon decided to move to the firing position in front of us. I don't know. It was at night. Maybe they got, I don't know how it happened, but it happened. And my gunner calls up to the range safety and is like, there's a target over here. It's not a target, it's a truck. I'm not going to engage this target. And the range safety is like, no, that is a target. You're going to shoot the target. And we're in a Crow system, 50 cal Crow, and the Humvee is not up armored. So imagine if you were to engage that target with 50 cal, the Humvee would be gone.
Yeah, and to give credit where it's due, this was the individual that called out to the tower was the same one that forgot their tent and did not bring their tennis shoes. So as much as we poked fun at them earlier, they did do the right thing and potentially save some lives at that point.
Yeah, for sure. Like I said, it was a Crow weapon system too, so you're not going to miss. He actually ended up winning the entire thing for Crow 50 cal in that category. But yeah, shout out to that individual, because that would have been a green on green situation and probably would not be allowed to go back to Fort Knox.
No, that'd be the least of our problems, is not going back there. That would have been maybe a reward.
Yeah.
Another thing that I just remembered when you were talking about the range itself was the fire suppression teams that, like, so if you're in the woods, it's dry, and you shoot those rounds, eventually you're going to have fires that pop up, whether it's just like smoke or whether like legitimate flames start coming up from the ground. This isn't the only range that does this, but it was just funny at the time because we were just in a situation we were in. People were dirty, grimy, and then it would be like, yet again, kind of Looney Tunes, like they would shut down the range, and then all of a sudden, like, a guy would take, not literally, take a light and put it on his head, and it'd be like, wee woo, wee woo. And then they would run out there with what we called floppy shovels. And it was just sticks with rubber like pads on the top. And they'd have to go beat the fire down. We were the only ones. We were the only ones training out there. So there wasn't like a legitimate fire department. And if there was, they didn't care about us out there anyway. So yeah, we had the fire suppression teams with their floppy shovels out there pounding the ground every night. Looking back on it, is one of the more interesting situations. Like Jonathan said, we've had more intense, more difficult things to do, but I don't know if I've ever had an experience where we've had so much difficult stuff to do that wasn't necessary or just seemed to be improperly planned, or just kind of out of spite to kind of show another unit that we were just better than them.
It was obvious too, like our leadership and our brigade leadership, they wanted us to go and be Cav Scouts, and we weren't supposed to be there. Like we weren't given a space to stay in. We weren't given anything really, and it was basically, you can come if you bring your stuff and you do it on your terms. And it showed when we got there, because the Cav Scouts had, like I said, they had I'm pretty sure they had a kitchen, didn't they have a actual kitchen, and they had showers, and they had places to stay, and that's why we moved so many times.
If you were to have like the stereotypical like movie about time travel and like early man coming into the new dawn of age, that was like us when we finally got to eat like their food. Or like if they were at the range, it'd be like our grimy asses rolling up there in our trucks, winning the competitions against them and then leaving. But I specifically remember when we had the awards for like best truck, best 50 cal Crow system, best crew, whatever it was. We show up, they're all clean showered and everything, and we had not eaten anything besides like MREs for a couple of weeks, and they had like steak and like caveman there sitting there like, oh my god, I've never eaten anything like this before in my life. They just like stared at us, and it was comical.
Yeah, then we're doing the award ceremonies, and like you said, we're dressed like we haven't showered in forever, and they're all up there in their nice uniforms, getting shaking hands and getting awards. And there's all of our truck crews up there, and look like we just got out of the ship for 3 months in a war zone.
Yeah,
That was crazy though.
yeah. But like we said, it's one of those times where you look back on it, and I don't want to say you're happy that it happened. I guess kind of happy that it happened because in the moment you're angry and upset about the situation. Then years later, you can kind of laugh about it like this. And every time we talk about it, I probably thought about it 4 or 5 times in the last week in preparation for like talking about it today. Every time I think of something new that happened there that I had forgotten about, that just makes it more like enjoyable to kind of relive it. Um, so yeah, we'll do this every I don't want to say every episode, but every couple episodes to kind of um, keep that content going for those that, like I said, we appreciate you guys that subscribe, like, and follow us, and just don't really care about what I have to say about the NFL, but maybe reminiscing about stories like this, whether you're with us or just when we talk about this, you think of your own situation that you went through that was kind of similar. Um, yeah, we'll do that every once in a while. We'll give you a heads up. I'll try and do what I did for podcast 2, where I give you a kind of a guide of what we're going to do for 3. So how are your Blue Jackets doing? I saw that other night had a rough one against, what was that, the Coyotes?
Yeah, Arizona and the Bruins. We played the Bruins on Friday and got shut out 4-0. Things aren't great in Columbus right now. The Blue Jackets and Brad Larson, I think we're starting to realize, are not a great hockey team. They have talent, but our defense is terrible. And I don't know what's going on with that top line. We can't find a center. It started out with Boone Jenner. Jack Russellvik was in on Friday, I think. But yeah, I get into the third period and it's 4-0, and I guess switch it to something else. And that's been the theme of the Blue Jackets for the last couple of games.
Yeah, I mean, at least you got football to watch, though, man. That was
yeah.
That I forget who explained it, but like I saw it on Twitter. The Ohio State game was like when you watch like a Warriors basketball game, and it seems like they're in the game against a team they probably shouldn't be, and then next thing you know, they have one possession and they're up by like 9 points. That was
Yeah.
what we saw from Ohio State. Like the game's tight, Penn State takes the lead, it's the third quarter, and next thing you know, it's okay, it's not a game anymore. It's
Yeah, for sure.
I hope that it's the case of Ryan Day trying to do different things and then kind of getting a feel for it and then being like, okay, let's just go back to what we do and then doing it correctly. That seems what happened. What do you think about that?
I think the story is the defense more than Ryan Day and all that. I think Jim Knowles, and he's the best defensive coordinator in the country. To take this team from where we were at last year on defense and do what he did the last 2 games, man, it's crazy. We know we have the offense. We got the talent. Ryan Day, his play calling, I like how aggressive he is, honestly, but some of the things that he does, especially when he's running the ball 3 times in a row or he's throwing screen pass over and over and over again and it doesn't work. He's a brilliant mind. He knows what he's doing, obviously, paid off in the fourth quarter, but yeah, it's frustrating at times for sure. But we didn't win yesterday because of our offense. We definitely won because of the defense.
Yeah, that's for sure. I'm looking forward to that Ohio State Michigan game because I need to see those bastards lose from Ann Arbor. Yesterday's game for us just shows a lack. It's discipline and coaching. Obviously, those 2 things are tied. Michigan State, first drive, a lineman who hasn't been pristine this year gets a 15-yard penalty that just crushes the drive when we were looking like we were going to go down and just punch it in the first drive with scripted plays. The scripted plays worked. Then as the game goes on, you start to realize that the coaches aren't adjusting to what they're seeing. Some of the defense played actually better than I thought they would. Excuse me. giving up 1 touchdown, and then the rest that bend but don't break, scoring field goals for Michigan. But the state offense just they couldn't figure it out. Like I texted someone yesterday and I said, Michigan's doing slants, doing hitch routes, doing sideline routes for 5-8 yards and hitting those. And State is either running a screen pass behind the line of scrimmage or throwing deep balls. Yeah, you can throw deep balls to Keon Coleman and he'll make those plays like we saw, but you got to have those intermediate routes where you're getting yards out of it, but you're not like taking deep shots. The 4th down play calls, I'm for being aggressive, but some of those, like, it could have been 13-10 at the half. 13-7 versus 13-10 is not the same. Take the points when you can get them. Obviously, Michigan had to kick field goals. They did, and that's what the difference in the game was. Obviously, they scored a touchdown later in the game, but for a stretch there, they're kicking field goals, they're making them. We're not. Difference in the game. But I can live vicariously through you Thanksgiving weekend, and just hope that they shove it to Michigan, which I think it'll be a good game, actually. I just hope Day does not do what he did at Penn State and try and play their game and beat them at their game. Just do what Ohio State does.
Yeah, and Ryan Day needs to realize that if there's a field goal opportunity with 6 seconds on the clock to take the lead going into the second half, you kick the field goal. I don't know what he was thinking. That's a different game if you go up at half. I mean, it was a 1-2 point game the entire time going into the fourth quarter. That would have been a 5-point game. So I don't know why you do that. And CJ Stroud, if you're going to go throw the ball on 3rd down or whatever it was with 6 seconds left, throw the ball. Don't drop back and take a sack and get out of the half. Yeah. Another thing, a big point for CJ Stroud and the rest of the offense, he has a lot of learning to do going down the stretch. The announcers, Gus Johnson, and they were all talking about he's snapping the ball with 11 seconds left on the play clock, and you're trying to bleed out the clock. So why don't you take that down below 5 seconds? It didn't hurt him at that point, but if you're going to close the game, he needs to learn a little bit more. Ryan Day needs to take the points when they're there, because Michigan is a good football team, and they're coming into Columbus. I know we have a good offense, and I'm hoping we just blow them out. But if it comes down to field goals, we got one of the better field goal kickers in the league. Kick the field goal, go in at half, win by 3 points. And at some point this season, that's going to be the difference, whether that's Tennessee or Georgia, Alabama, Michigan. He's going to have to take the points. He's going to have to be smart. And CJ Stroud's going to have to manage the game.
All right. Yeah, I agree. But we're about running out of time here. We're going to have to